We have a great task force with people from all over the state of Florida and all the different industries, particularly small business, and we're putting together a lot of great ideas for what the next phase looks like in Florida. But, you know, I got to give credit to the people of Florida. You go back 6 weeks, everybody, particularly in the Acela media, was saying Florida was going to be worse than New York. Obviously, we have a very elderly population. It was constant people saying that. If you look at what's happened, that's not true. You know, New York, for example, has about 25 times the number of fatalities of Florida, even though we have 2 million more people. Right now, as of last night, we had about 730 people statewide in the ICU. People said our hospitals were going to be overrun. We've actually increased hospital bed space and ICU bed space during the pandemic. So there were fewer beds available in Florida in February than there are now. So Florida's flattened the curve. People have done a great job, and I think we understand that you can do both. You can continue to fight COVID-19, but also get people back to work and have society function again. And Brian, I never did draconian orders here like you see in some of these other states where a dad would get arrested for or get cited for taking his daughter to the park. That doesn't work. We've never done that. We've been very, I think, reasonable with the people of Florida, and they've responded.
Would you update us on the testing? The vice president said yesterday, he says he has enough testing capacity today for every state to go into phase 1. So if you'll update us on that in the field hospital down in Miami, that'd be great.
Yeah, so Florida, we've done now, I think, about 280,000 tests. In South Florida, we've tested 1 for every 50 residents. That's where most of our cases are. What they have done is, by unlocking these high throughput machines, they increase the cost per test or the reimbursement per test from $50 to $100. So now we are looking and in discussions with some of these labs who can put through a lot of tests in a 24-hour period. So that will increase our ability to do this. We also now have this point-of-care Abbott Labs test that our hospitals are using. We're trying to get more for nursing homes. We have strike teams in the nursing homes that are doing surveillance testing, which is very, very important. So if you go back 2 months of where testing was, not only here, but internationally, and look at all that's happened, I mean, it's been an unprecedented explosion. So we're going to do more in Florida. We're also going to do the serology test to test for the antibodies. You look what's been done in California, some of these places, and the indication is that far more people have had this than we know. That actually is kind of a good thing, because it means the disease is less lethal than we thought. But we want to know how the antibodies are in the state of Florida. And in terms of the field hospitals, Ainsley, we planned for hospital capacity. We wanted to make sure we had enough. We had different field hospitals. The Army Corps helped us at the Miami Beach Convention Center. Every field hospital in the state of Florida right now sits empty, and that's a good thing.
That is a good thing.
That is a good thing. Governor, I know that you have appointed a Reopen Florida task force, and you've tasked them with trying to figure out how to reopen as much as you can in a phased approach in the next 5 days. And I saw that you've got people like executives from Disney and Universal trying to think of how to get the tourists back. And that is really what is impacting Florida, because Florida's #1 industry is tourism. And right now you're at the back toward the end of the season down there. And I was reading in one of the papers this morning that one of the suggestions is to get people back, you know, when they check into one of the Miami hotels or any hotel, maybe you take their temperature just to make sure that they're okay. But then there's the problem of it could be a false positive or a false negative, and you wind up making it worse.
Well, so I would say this, Steve. It's amazing the ideas that the businesses are already thinking about. They've been thinking deeply about this for weeks and weeks. There's a lot of great ideas that I've already seen put on the table. I'm in discussions with places like Disney. They are so far ahead of the curve, and I think everyone wants to make sure that we do it safely. And, you know, you think about it, if you own a hotel in Miami, the last thing you want is to do a false negative and then have a small outbreak in your hotel. So they are very keen on safety, and I think that they're going to be leading the way on the innovation. So, you know, we'll have some guidelines, of course, but I think a lot of the businesses are going to go above and beyond, because the people want to be confident that it's safe. It could actually be safe, but if they don't think it is, then that's bad for business. And so all the business people I've talked to in all industries in Florida are very keen on that.
Right.
Governor, we notice the New York governor led the putting together of a regional coalition of Delaware and Pennsylvania and Massachusetts and Connecticut and New Jersey. And then you had the Western coalition of 3 separate states. Have you thought about consolidating with South Carolina and Georgia and others, perhaps, and put together one? Or you just want to leave Florida by itself in making that decision?
Well, we're actually kind of doing both. So we've had a meeting with all the southeastern governors, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, and Tennessee, and we shared a lot of ideas. I think we'll be on the same page as some stuff, but as you guys know, Florida is about 5 states in and of itself. And so we have a situation where we have 3 counties in southeast Florida that has over 60% of our hospitalizations to date. I have other parts like northeast Florida, their deaths per 100,000 is like 1.6. Whereas a place like New York would be 90 deaths per 100,000. So this has impacted the state differently, and I think how you approach it, it may not be uniform in every jurisdiction in Florida. So yes, we're going to work regionally, but I also got to work regionally within my own state to make sure we thread the needle properly.
Right, we're seeing that in New York too. Such a hot spot in in Manhattan and out here on Long Island, but the upper part of the state, not so much. So yeah, that's a tough task that you have. Same with you with Miami and Fort Lauderdale and Jacksonville. Thank you, Governor, for being on with us.
Thanks, guys.